And we're live in 3, 2, and welcome everybody to another episode of the Planetmullins Podcast. And we're in season 2 now, which is exciting for me because the show is just continuing to grow and grow and grow. And I'm honored to have somebody I just consider exceptional in so many ways, artistically and personally and visionarily, is that a word?
Visionarily. I mean,
Vision.
it should be. So, yeah.
Well, it is now because I said it.
Cool.
So this is Rayssa Gomes, ladies and gentlemen, joining me today.
Hello.
Hi, say hi to everybody. I mean,
Hi.
you're going to be getting exposed to a whole new group of people through this show, and
Cool.
I couldn't be more thrilled because even though we've all got our internet worlds, we have Facebook and Snapchat and TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff, it's still amazing how all those worlds don't always intersect, and the way that ours intersected in the very first place, you can tell the story about how we met, or I'll tell it. I think you should tell
it. I had just gone to a concert in Santa Monica with my friends on the pier, and they were like, where should we? And I was like, Sidewalk Cafe. I love it there. I actually I'm the food's great, but I'm more of a fan of like the bookstore.
Oh yeah, Small World Books.
Cat in the bookstore. First it was Conan, now it's Francis.
Right.
And I love that little cat. We actually went and he wasn't there because it was like closed by now.
Right.
But so we had I had a sandwich that was like Charles Dickens or something, and it was great. I love that place so much. It's just like the atmosphere of it's better than everything in the world. So it's awesome.
I totally agree. I mean, I've had the good fortune before the virus of playing there on Thursday nights with a little classic rock band for about 4 years. So,
cool.
We would be down there, and we're supposed to play like a dinnery kind of set, and then it gets louder and louder, and then all of a sudden we're busting out with the Jimi Hendrix,
right?
And Zeppelin.
I think that's when we got there because we were all like stoked on Zeppelin and
Hendrix,
all these tunes.
The Doors.
Yeah, and we were all musicians, so we all we love playing that kind of stuff. So we love hearing it when it's done well. We definitely don't like hearing it when it's not done well.
Yeah, I just find it kind of refreshing and a little encouraging that someone in your age range even knows who those bands are, because I meet students all the time. I'm taking the summer off from teaching, but in the spring I had this student, and he's like 25 and he works for a video game company. He's just learning jazz, and I said,
that's cool.
Well, I like jazz and I like rock too. Okay, who do you like in rock? And I said, well, I like Zeppelin and the Doors, and he's like, no idea.
Oh no! No idea?
Not even an idea. Like I had to make him a list of the bands.
No, I can't.
Well,
I can't. Well, I just can't imagine no idea, because even when I grew up on like pop music, like music that was on the radio.
Right.
I listened to like Radio Disney a lot. I'm so proud to say.
Oh wow, Radio Disney. As an older white male, I'll be happy to say I never tune in.
Yeah, it's fine. I was very much into like Hilary Duff and Jesse McCartney, and I'll just like the pop top 40 for kids. And
sure.
Then
so you started out really listening to the radio, and then singing along to it, I guess.
Yeah, it was funny because I always thought everyone could harmonize. I was like, why doesn't everyone just harmonize? It sounds so much better. And I used to get like, we'd had like road trips for school and stuff, and they'd be like, I'm in the car with Rayssa. She's gonna harmonize the entire time.
Oh
great.
No!
And they didn't even say harmonize, right? Because they just said singing, and I was like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. And I couldn't help myself. There was no stopping me.
Well,
but it's funny because I grew up, thinking that was just like a normal thing. No one ever told me like, wow, that's amazing or whatever. And so when I started studying music and we started doing like harmonies and counterpoint and things, I was always like, what are you talking about? It's this. And people are like, how did you do that? I was like, I don't know. I guess it's not normal. I always thought it was.
Well, there's, I think for all of us that are into arts and the music, singing, and, even dance or ear training or recording, you have that like moment in your childhood where like a family member. Yeah, for me, it was like my mom with the story I told you about the plane went overhead and it was a
Yeah.
B-7, and then as it fades away, it drops to an A7 because of the Doppler effect. And she's going to my dad like, honey, I think we've got something going.
You gotta get him into music.
Bobby has an issue. I don't know if we should institutionalize him or encourage him. So, but were you into like church music and that stuff too, or?
So I was, yeah. Well, I mean, I grew up in Miami, and I went to a church called Trinity Church, and it's just like predominantly Black church and with like great gospel musicians and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was always into church music. We did, a few productions. We'd take like Scrooge every Christmas and like turn it into like a new hip hop version of it. And I was always involved in that. I dug it so much.
Here's a funny story. Here's a funny story about that same kind of thing, because there's a game called Monopoly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never know how to play it.
But if you have like access to a certain part of town, there's also Comptonopoly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's Inglewood-onopoly.
I think I would play that more, maybe.
I wouldn't play the Compton one because I'd be the first guy to get shot.
Oh, in the game? Does that happen in the game? I don't know. It's funny because everyone's always, I always really wanted to play board. So I'm Brazilian originally.
Okay.
And so my parents came here when I was 5.
Okay.
And I remember I thought it was a very American thing. I was like, let's get some board games. But I was an only child too. So we never actually bought board games because it was like, what are you going to do? Play alone? So I'd go over to my friend's house.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, that's kind of weird. Well, do you think the only child thing kind of helped you or hurt you or both?
I think it helped me in the sense of I never had someone telling me I was weird until like high school,
Until you were dating.
Yeah. And then by then I was like, this is who I am. There's no change in it,
Right.
So I think that's funny. So like sometimes I'll talk to myself when I'm practicing or whatever. I'll be like, crap, oh, whatever. And then I'll practice with other people and they won't do that. And it's because I never had like a brother or sister going, shut up, you're being weird, And so I kind of just became this like weird person all by myself, which is dope. And my mom's like my best friend. So I think it also helped that relationship as well.
Well, it just seems like, whatever you've done and however you've evolved, you're, what I would say, to coin like a LA term or whatever, you're totally crushing it, bro. I mean, because I read your bio and I remember when I met you, it's already been 3 years ago. And,
right.
We talked and exchanged numbers, and then you gave me a tour of MI one day, and we'll get into all that later. But in reading your bio, I see now, just since I last saw you, you finished 3 degree programs at MI. You finished one in vocal performance, one in guitar performance, and one in music production. Wow.
Yeah. Thank you. I worked, it's funny because the last one, the music production one, I did all throughout COVID.
Oh.
And everyone was like, oh, just another day of not having anything to do. And I was like, all of my classes are online. And it was, I think I did the last quarter of the guitar program online, and it was a little hard because it was, guitar performance, but the electronic music production, it was mostly on computers anyway. So it didn't really take away from the experience of it. And it was just, I had things to do all the time. It was like so stressful. So I missed out on that.
You always struck me, just even from the beginning, as a person that, is kind of not like your peer group. Because when I think about the age group that you're in, I think about people that are, sitting around a lot and they spend a lot of time in the basement and, they don't shower much. This is the boys. This is the boys mostly. They don't go outside unless there's like, bologna sandwich up there.
Yeah.
And, maybe some Cheetos.
Well, I think it's, I'm actually, it's technically Zillennial. I'm basically a millennial on the cusp of being like Gen Z. And I think that,
Zillennial.
Zillennial, it's a thing, apparently. I think it's funny because I think the millennial generation complained a lot about things that, needed to be complained about. But then like Gen Z is actually like doing something and like getting out there. But they have a very, it's like, what is this going to do in my life? Why do I want to work 9 to 5 to, die one
Did
day.
you, well, let's just talk about that because I had just a couple of quote unquote normal day gigs. And my favorite story to tell, I'll try and make it really short. I was at a country club and I was working in the dish room at a country club, like lots of rich people. And then guys would bring carts of dishes in. And I had this huge stainless steel sink with a hose with, 200-degree water. And I'd be rinsing these dishes and putting them in a big machine for 8 hours. And I got to where I really hated that. And I was getting good enough to start gigging, but I was only 15. And then one day this guy comes in and he's been giving me crap ever since day one. And I finally lost it on him. And I just took the hose that was that scalding water, I just pointed at his face, and I burned his face off.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
So then they called 911 and I was,
of course.
No, I was normally just this kind of quiet kid, but he pushed me over the edge, right? So I'm just standing there trying to be all cool and stuff. And then the manager comes over and says, "You're fired. You can't do this. This is terrible. He's got 3rd-degree burns. You're out of here." So I go to my locker, and the guy who was the bar manager had been watching this whole thing. And as I'm pulling my stuff out of my locker, this black guy in like a vest, he looked like Isaac on the Love Boat. He comes over, he says, "That took a lot of guts, kid. Do you want to go to work for me? I run the bar."
That's so dope.
So I got fired from dishwasher.
But you worked
20 minutes later, I started working as a bar back, and then this guy happened to love jazz. So in the afternoons, I just got to play the grand piano at the country club. It was great.
That's cool. That's so dope.
But what about your day jobs? Did you ever try Carl's Jr. or waitressing or?
Thank God I didn't
Girl
have
Scout
to.
cookies?
My mom was very she was very like so I wasn't always gonna be a musician, as in I always wanted to, like ever since I was like 2, I would sing all the time.
Okay.
But my parents were immigrants, so they were like, you should try to go for something that like provides a more stable income.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, but they were caring for me and they didn't want me to die, and so
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah. And so when I went to college, it was for political science initially, and then it became political science and computer science. So in high school, I was like involved in like mock trial, and I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer and it's going to be great. And I was like involved in the political clubs at the school. And my mom was very like, you're not going to work. We're going to struggle, but you're not going to work because you're going to focus on doing this. And the high school that I went to, it was a public high school, but it was kind of, I didn't know it was very different. It had like 25 AP classes. It was like very geared towards getting people into the Ivies and just overall good schools.
Cool. Well, that sounds like that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. So I didn't work at all in high school. And then when I went to college in New York at Hofstra University on Long Island, I worked my first job there as as like a computer tech, basically as IT tech, at this.
So in the old days in my era, we would have termed you a brainy chick.
Yeah, definitely. I've got a brain and I'm a chick, so it works. Okay.
I'm so glad you're not offended by the term. So, it says also in your bio, political science and computers. So that's an interesting combination.
Yeah, I mean, so when I first started, Hofstra University is a big poli-sci school. They had like the Mitt Romney Obama debate there. I think they also had the McCain Obama debate there, if I'm not mistaken. So, they're very political and they have a great political science program. So that's mainly why I went there. And then I was there. And I would, go to all the political clubs and stuff. And I was just like, you guys care way more than I do. I was just like, you guys care so much about this. I like don't. And, my goal was law school. So I took a computer science class, just one. And I'd never really, I'd been on MySpace. I grew up in that era where MySpace is like a middle school for me, but I like that you could like code the website designs of it. And so that's kind of where I learned. And I thought that was really, really cool. So I just took a computer science class to like fulfill a math requirement. And I got straight A's. And I remember like the final, I walked into the room and the teacher was like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "What are you talking about? It's the final stage." He's like, "Yeah, there's like nothing you can do to like not get a perfect score in this class. Like you've already done it. So you can leave." And I like, it was so cool. I felt so cool. I was like, I can leave. And I just left. And yeah,
That's so great.
yeah. Well, after that, I was like, okay, I should probably, study computer science. There aren't a lot of women in STEM. There aren't a lot of like or just white European women in STEM at all. And so
I don't know much about STEM.
Yeah, it was very funny because the guys are much more respectful in STEM because they hadn't really, they were used to like having classes of just guys. So there'd be like one or two girls in a class, and we'd think it was funny because they were just so respectful. Like they wouldn't like once I was packing up my bag and there's like a line of guys waiting because they didn't want to step over it. It was like very cute and nice, and it was so good. I mean, I hear that like once you get in the field, it's a lot more on the opposite end of that. Right. But it's kind of like a boys club. But
sure.
Yeah. For studying, it was fine. And then that's a big reason of why it took so long for me to stop and do music, because I was kind of like, well, I'm good at this. It's sure money. I'm a woman, like.
Right. And there's 10 guys waiting for you to move your bag. That's kind of cool. I mean, in college, I had, 10 girls standing there going, I wonder if he's going to move his bag soon because we all have to pee.
Usually it's kind of like that. And I have heard that like once people got into like STEM companies, it was the other way around.
Okay.
But I was like, everyone I talked to, they're like, but you're a woman in STEM, like you got to keep going. And I was like, okay. But it just got to a point where I was in LA at the time, and I was studying computer science, and I just got like really depressed about just studying, because I was like, I can do this is great, but like after hour 3 I'm burnt out, and then I have like 18 more hours to go.
Yeah, but you still sang and were doing your music just for fun,
right? But I wasn't like making anything. It wasn't anything like concrete. I had like voice memos of stuff, and I would sing all the time. And in New York, I would go to a Broadway show every weekend because they had discount tickets for students, and so I'd line up in the morning, get a cheap ticket for the night's show. I'd like, do things in the city, and then I'd go to a show. So I was always like involved in music, and I went to Hillsong, New York City, a church in New York City, and I was involved in their music department.
Whoa, that's wacky. I know way too much about Hillsong.
Oh, really? Yeah. I was there right when it started in New York City. So it was cool to see it grow. And every week we'd get a text, be like, church is here. And we'd be like, okay. So it wasn't like a set thing,
Sure.
So it was cool. But I never did anything concrete as in like recording or anything. And so Candlelight Burns, I actually wrote the night I saw this band, and I like fell in love with this dude, and I wrote about it. But I wrote it shortly after seeing Once. So I think it has like an influence from Once.
That's such a female musician thing to say, though. I saw this band and I fell in love with this dude. So
it was great.
It's like it's so Taylor Swiftish.
Well, it's funny because I'm not like typical, as in it's not like a typical story as in like I fell in love, whatever. I went and I saw him and I thought that guy's way too good looking to not be a dick. And I just had that in my mind. And then afterwards, my friend wanted to take a picture with him. So we did. And then it ended up, he liked me and stuff. So, and then we dated for like a year, almost a year. So, but it was just funny because I was like, no, I can't. I'm not like a very hopeful person in that sense, which sucks because I'm hopeful in other places. But yeah, I was always like, he's probably arrogant. He wasn't. He was very sweet. But
well, you never can really tell. But then there's also things like the black BMW factor that I've noticed in LA, and a lot of people just say, "No, Rob, you're wrong." But every time I'm getting cut off by somebody, or they're honking, or just like driving 90, it's always the black BMW. Every time.
I may or may not have a black BMW.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that.
It is. I mean, and it's a thing because, I used to drive Mercedes, and now that I live in Venice, I learned don't have anything nice because it's just a waste of time because, don't have anything nice because it's going to get stolen, broken into, windows bashed out. So now I have a
parking is just terrible. Well, actually, parking in Venice is not that bad.
It's really bad, but the place that I'm at though, it comes with parking. I have parking, so
Okay.
so if you ever want to come by and park, you can park.
Yeah, well, it's so funny because I remember like things have changed so much for me since I got to LA, and I remember going to Venice with my friends and being like $7 for parking, so expensive. And then
Oh,
now I've driven around enough that I'm like $7 for parking is amazing.
I know. Well, when I first joined, there was a place called Danny's Venice that was in the Windward Circle. And when I first joined Vinny Caggiano and his band, The Elegant Strangers, my harmonica buddy Stan Behrens was suggesting to Vinny, hey, you should get this guy Rob Mullins because he can play drums and bass at the same time, and he would be great for the band. And Vinny was really skeptical and this and that. But I went down and I auditioned for no money for that band on a 4th of July weekend, and parking was $40.
Crazy.
So I spent
Can they do that for the beach lots? Can they?
It's over 50 now.
Oh, wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
I know. So
Like Manhattan. People were like, you don't have a car in LA. And I was like, I just moved from Manhattan. Why would I have a car? It's just
yeah,
like
you don't need
stupid.
one out there. But well, let's talk a little bit about some of these amazing credits that you've amassed at your tender age of 25. You're 25?
I'm 28 now.
Oh, okay. So I
It's been
guess
a while.
looking at a.
I think I met you when I was 25.
Oh, okay. But in reading over your bio, there's just you're with all these big name people doing this stuff, and remember, I come from music teacher background where there's like the whiny factor, where they're like, well, I don't really think I'm ever gonna go anywhere, and like I'm working on this one song for 2 months, and they're not motivated, they're not really working, and then they've already kind of mentally defeated themselves before they even kind of get out of the house. But I'm looking at these names like, we'll just start with Demi Lovato Choir. How the heck did you get into Demi Lovato's choir? That sounds like could be an awesome story.
Well, so that's actually from the Christina Aguilera. Like it all feeds into each other, right? Like once you get one gig, you get another. So do you want me to talk about how I got the Christina and then the
yes, come on, man, because I know young people are going to be going, well, I don't think she was just so lucky, man.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely cases like that in the music industry. It's also like a right place, right time, and then just like favor. So Christina Aguilera was weird because someone called my mother's phone at like midnight, and I was like, I'm very protective of my mom, so I was like, who's calling your phone at midnight? Let me answer. And it was this woman, and she was asking if I wanted to be part of the Christina Aguilera choir. I had been recommended. I know. Yeah, I had been recommended by someone, and then later I found out it was my mentor. But she was just like, I got your number, and apparently it was my mom's number, which is hilarious. I was like, I don't know how that confusion worked out, but it worked out. And so it was a Wednesday at midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to be in rehearsal Thursday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And then the show was Sunday, and that was the American Music Awards. So that was like very last minute. And I was like, of course, I had a full schedule Thursday, Friday, Sunday. And I was like, it's done. It's out. I'm doing this. Obviously, I'm not crazy.
No, you have to do it. You have to do it.
You have to do it. And there was another person, one of my colleagues, and she didn't do it because she had a gig. And I was like, you're crazy. But yeah, so that was the Christina Aguilera gig, and it was very cool because it was an award show. So it was funny though, at the time I was trying to focus on like learning more, because like I said, I had grown up with pop music more. So I was focusing more on like learning the basics of rock, like, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't listen to the radio at all for like 6 months, 8 months.
Okay.
Intentionally. And so when I went to the award show, I didn't know anyone. I didn't I had like a moment with like Shawn Mendes. I had no idea who he was. I loved his songs because I had heard them, but I'd never seen his face.
Oh, wow.
So a bunch of stuff like that happened where I was like, oh, that was Shawn Mendes. That, that thing. Okay. And, I almost like bumped into like Niall Horan a lot. I almost tripped him. It was bad. And Nick Jonas, was so nice to wait for me while I was taking like a photo. It was all kind of very surreal and a lot of experiences. DJ Khaled was like holding his kid and someone wanted to take a picture with him and he like held his kid like this. And it was just weird. Like all these little weird things that happened that,
you got into the, what we call the rarefied air. It's like, it's kind of like, if you're chugging along and you're going over the San Gabriel Valley in like a little, prop plane and you're barely over the trees and you might crash by the time you hit Mount Baldy, that's like that. But then when you get up there and you're like, I'm at 40,000 feet, bro.
Yeah.
You just made that whoosh right up there and just one call.
Very weird.
Yeah.
Very weird. But yeah, it was so that gig there was an after party, as there always is any big award show or premiere or anything. And I had come to the point where I was like, I can't be drunk here. And, I had gotten a little tipsy. And so I took a normal cup. Cause usually when you ask for water, they give you like a water cup and everyone knows it's water.
Right.
And I dumped out, the ice and I asked for water in my drink cup. And so someone, my friends were all like talking to some people. And this one guy in the group, he's like, what is that, water? And I was like, vodka. And he's like, that's not vodka, that's water. That's a lot. Yeah. And I was like, I know, of course it is. I'm cut myself off. And we started talking and he was the music director for Demi's choir.
Okay.
So that's how I got that. And, I told him I was there with Christina's choir and he was like, oh, that's cool. Give me your info. I'll look at your stuff. And, so I sent him my stuff and, my number. And then I just, didn't hear anything for a while. And then, and then I got the Demi gig, which was a whole other story the day of, because, the day before we had rehearsals and I showed up to rehearsal and they were like, you're not supposed to be here. And I was like, what are you talking about? So they had hired like, I don't remember the numbers, but it was something like 15 people. And then they'd hired 3 more. And then the production cut it down back to 15. So, those 3 people that were hired last, they had to be cut. And I was number 16. And so they were like, oh, I was supposed to have had a text that was like, hey, sorry, we can't, we're cutting it back down, whatever. I'm sorry. Since you were hired last, we're going to have to you're not going to be part of it. And so the guy took me aside and told me that at the rehearsal and he was like, so you can go if you want. And I was like, you know what? I'm here. I learned a song. I might as well
stick around
here. And I'm a very I'm Christian and I'm very into God and stuff. And for the second half of the rehearsal, the music director was also a pastor and he was doing his own songs on TBN, which is Trinity Broadcasting Network. And he was like, hey, can you guys run through this song and just do a recording so I can put it on my Instagram? And so we did. And I remember it was the song about at the end of it all, God's got you. And I was like, this hurts, I came here to sing for Demi and I'm not going to, this hurts.
Oh yeah.
And it was just crazy. And so I was like, so I basically prayed every time I would sing that song. It's called Grace by Javen. And anyway, so at the end of the rehearsal, I was like, hey, I'm available. The call time was noon at Universal Studios. And I was like, I can be there in 20 minutes, 20 minutes. I can be there. I'm available. I'm going to be ready. And they're like, that's great. We don't need you. That's great though. And I was like, I understand. I'm just saying if anything happens and you do need me,
right,
let me know. And so that morning, it was a Monday, I got up, I had classes that was teaching that day. Cause I also a teaching assistant at MI Musicians Institute. So I had classes and I got them covered and I was like, I guess. And I just felt like I should get ready. And I was like, why am I going to get ready? There's nothing to get ready for. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get ready. And I sat down in my couch at 11:57, which is 3 minutes to call time. And I just sat there and I waited. And I was like, I guess I'm going to do this. And I was like, should I watch a TV show? And for a second, I was just in my brain.
Right.
And then at 12:07, I got a call and they're like, hey, how fast can you be here?
Yeah.
Something happened with someone. And they're like, we need you here now. And I was like, I'll be there. And I was there at 12:22.
Wow.
I know. I made it. I was like, I didn't have a car then. So I was like, oh, I have to order an Uber, I guess, whatever. And I did, and it worked out, because that always messes things up. And I got there and I was like fully made up and makeup. And they're like, you're ready. And I was like, yeah.
I got ready at 9:00 this morning just in case.
Yeah. And I got there, and sometimes we do like pre-recorded things so that they can make sure that the voice blends and stuff. And so they just handed me a mic, and I was like, okay, I guess we're singing. And it was great. So that was the story with Demi. That was amazing for me because, my first performance with Christina was great, but I didn't grow up listening to Christina.
Right.
She was a little bit before my time, but I grew up listening to Demi. I grew up like watching her on TV and watching Camp Rock on Disney Channel. And there's like this video somewhere of me singing one of her songs at the orientation for my university, poetry night in a community library,
Right.
So like
we all have those gigs, man.
Dude, I was like, I can't believe this is happening. What's going on? And I loved her and Nick Jonas. And I had seen like a concert of them together when I come, like right when I arrived here, maybe a year after I got to LA.
Okay.
And I remember being like, oh my gosh, they're in front of me. That's amazing. And then, like a few years later, I sang for Demi. And then, shortly after that, I got the Nick Jonas gig. And I remember like Nick is so sweet and nice to everyone he works with. And he was waiting for each of us to get there to like find out our names, meet us, get to know us, whatever, shake our hands. And I was like, hi. I mean, because you got to be cool, right? Like that's the thing. You can't take pictures. You can't really.
Oh, no. There's like the whole celebrity thing. I remember there was the same vibe when I got the gig with Bruce Willis. Mm-hmm. The only way I got that gig is because the keyboard player was also playing in Guns N' Roses. So he got a call to go play with Guns N' Roses and couldn't do Bruce's gig. And that happened on a Sunday night. And Tuesday, I was on my way to France.
Yeah. I love how like late it all is, or late, I guess, rushed. I don't know. It's
last minute. I think it's the last minute.
Yeah. Sorry. Last minute. Yes, that's correct. I love how last minute it all is. And isn't it great?
Well, really awesome. It is if you're a person, I think with your kind of type A personality, and mine type A has always been just really improvisational. And I'm an adventurous type person. I like travel. I like doing stuff at the last minute. I've made a couple of bad choices in my life, but mostly when I do something impulsive, just like I'm flying right back to Moscow to spend 2 weeks with that girl I met last week. That's
beautiful. That's love.
Oh, but if you haven't been to Moscow, you have to go. It's the most enchanting city in the world. I mean, I love that place.
Yeah. But yeah. I do. So I have a friend that I call my brother. I literally consider him like my blood brother.
Did you adopt him?
No.
No, I mean,
mom basically did.
Since you're an only child, you kind of adopted him.
Yeah. We kind of, he calls me, but like literally people ask me like, oh, how's you're friends with Mike? I'm like, my brother? Yeah, I'm friends with him. He's great. And it's so funny because in speaking of being spontaneous, he calls me one night, and this is when Black Panther had just come out. And I love him. He's Black, and he's all about Black pride and stuff. And he calls me and he's like, Rayssa, do you want to take a flight with me? I found these really cheap flights to Africa. And I was like, man, I have my passport. And I was like, where, when, like, how does this work? And he was like, it's to Wakanda. And I didn't know at the time, because the movie had just come out, it was in theaters.
Oh.
Time that it was, like a place in the movie. I was like, this is just a place in Africa I've never heard of before.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? Let's go. What airport? And he goes, the Cinemark in Inglewood. And I was like, that's not an airport. What are you doing? And he was like, no, it's a joke. Like, I want you to watch the movie with me. But it was so funny because I had said yes to going to Africa last minute. Like I was like, let's go. I'm
Well,
down.
I think it's just a very indicative, in my mind, a positive thing about you, because I've been that way too. The first trip I ever took abroad, I had played the Telluride Jazz Festival in Colorado. I was 19, and it was McCoy Tyner before me, then my band, and then Spyro Gyra, right? So there was this guy, and that was kind of cool. I'm 19. I'm like on this festival. So this guy walks up to me at the end of the show. He comes right into the green room area. Says, "My name's John. This is my Winnebago. Come to my Winnebago and let's smoke some weed." I'm like, okay. So I go over there with my band. We go in, and he says, "Who wants to go to Europe next week? Because I got to go over there to take care of some business in Germany. Ever been to Germany? Who's been to Germany?" And we're all like, we're Denver public school, high school children. No, we haven't been to Germany. And he says, "Well, get a passport together and I'll postpone my trip. You can get a rush passport, blah, blah, blah." So 2 months later, I'm meeting this guy at the airport in Denver, and we're flying to frickin' Frankfurt. And
That's so cool.
And driving to Nuremberg. And I didn't know this guy from Adam, and he actually scared the crap out of me, Rayssa, because
did he pay for it, or
no? It was all expenses paid. So then I started thinking, oh shit, he's gay. He's got to be gay.
He's gonna.
Yeah, so he's gonna be worried about my Frankfurter or something over in Frankfurt. But we get there, and it's different rules on the highways. You can drink beer while you're driving.
Oh,
and it's like, it's like 200 kilometers is 160 miles an hour. He was going like 180 miles an hour with an open beer going, "Isn't this great?" Down the highway.
You're like, clutching, crazy.
Yeah.